Okay. Right. So maybe we can begin. So we just wanted to do a check-in, see how everybody is, but we'll first turn the floor over to Norman. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like everyone to know and understand we're in the holy presence of our Lord Jesus Christ. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, we thank you for your love and for the many good things you have given to our family. Help us to show our gratitude by loving each other as you love us. Dear Lord, we thank you for our children. We thank you for them because they are our sunlight, our joy, and our fulfillment. We do not ask you, God, for an insulated world for our children, especially in these times. For in this kind of world, they will not grow, nor do we ask you to preserve them from all mistakes. For by some of these are they truly made wiser, but only from such that will destroy them, irreparably perhaps, with one sure blow. Look down upon our petitions, indicative of our willingness to do our share in preserving them from such a fall. Bless our teachers, so that they may be shining examples by which our children will see them on the path to heaven. These we ask in the mighty name of your Son, Jesus Christ, with the Holy Spirit, with the Virgin Mary, and with all the saints. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay?
Okay. So thank you for leading us in prayer, Norman. Today, maybe before we begin, what I'd like to do, I'm Rina Villalon, and I'm here with Mrs. Mary Ann Eala and Miss Michelle Santos. Maybe just so that they get to know us, I'll ask, maybe we can introduce ourselves, Mary Ann and Michelle and myself. So maybe we can start with Mary Ann. Can you give us a brief introduction?
Okay. Can you hear me? I shifted mics. Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. My name is Mary Ann Eala. I have been teaching for the past, I think, over 3 decades. I am a mother of 4. I'm a single parent, and my children are all grown. My eldest is almost 30, and my youngest is 20. And I guess in terms of my vocation, what is my vocation in life? It's really to bring up my children in such a way that when I give them back to God, they are the best versions of themselves. So we are happy to be here with you. Welcome.
Thank you. Michelle, maybe you can also tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Michelle Santos, and I've been teaching in Assumption for about 18 years now. I'm a mother of 3, ages 8, 5, and 2. So relatively, I'm a young parent, struggling, like maybe some of you, especially in this context of the pandemic and having to continue the education of our children. So I'm one with you there. I was a student of Mary Ann, just so you know, and I've been closely working with Rina and Mary Ann also for a good number of years.
Thank you, and I'm Rina. Like Mary Ann and Michelle, I've been teaching in Assumption for a good long time as well. And I teach with Mary Ann. We're teaching partners and partners in many other things, for which I feel has been it's been a good journey. And we look forward to more of that. I have 4 children, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So just when I thought I got to that part where all of the kids were big, I got to go back to raising a toddler. So it's been a great adventure, seeing all of the different stages. So without much further ado, I think we can begin with today, and we introduce you to. We welcome you to Parents as Pilots, and we are the 3 who will be journeying with you today.
Okay, the way that we will conduct this, no, we don't really like webinars where you just sit and absorb everything. So this will be engaging for you. It will be interactive. There will be polls. You will be asked to respond in the chat box. And there will be maybe 2 or 3 instances where you will be sent to breakout rooms in order for you to interact with the other participants in this. Is this okay with you guys? Can I have a reaction button or a physical thumbs up if your video is on? Is this all right with you? Okay, thank you, Mimi. I can see you. Norman, yes, thank you. Great, great, great. So before we begin, Rina will just go over some house rules.
Okay, so some things, and we'll really ask if you're, it's so, I think one of the good ways for us to connect, especially that we're online, is for us to be able to see each other. So we're going to ask you, and it's also a big help for us facilitators to see your faces. One of the things hi, thank you so much. Thank you guys for turning on your cameras. Yes, it's not easy to talk to the profile pictures. We like talking to people, so thank you so much, because we'd love to see your faces. So please keep your video on and mute yourself unless you're called on to share. There will be times for you to share. We'll be using, like Mary Ann said, the chat box, the breakout rooms, and the polling features today. So we're going to try to use a lot of things. In a sense, Mary Ann put it well. Think of it, she said, it's sort of like we're simulating how we do class. So we know you're coming in as parents, but think of yourself as students. And just be game to engage in the activities. And then we'll have a Q&A later on. So we will be happy to entertain your questions at the end of the presentation. Is that okay with everybody? All right, thank you. So are we good to move on? Thank you. Okay, so this is our roadmap for today. We like to do this also for all our classes, where we show you what we're going to take. We find that I think it really helps people to know where we're going, right? There's so many unknowns online. So we like to present our roadmap. Okay, so the first thing, you can see it there. I won't read it to you anymore. But I think I'll leave it to you to discover what each of these things are. So we're going now on our first stop on this journey as pilots.
All right. So I don't know how many of you have heard the term VUCA. Next slide, please. VUCA. Yeah, I can see some hands coming up, no? VUCA. When was this term coined and what is it all about? VUCA actually stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. If you paid attention to the words, you realize that we just described the world in which we live in now. We live in a VUCA world. When was this term coined? It was after the Cold War in the US to describe what the world was like then. But today, this term is certainly not only with the pandemic, not only with COVID-19, but with everything going around on a global scale, we really live in a VUCA world. And therefore, what becomes very important is the leadership that will help to navigate this VUCA world successfully. I'm talking on the global scale, on a national scale, on an LGU scale, and on a family scale. VUCA. So therefore, as parents, it's like we live, it's like you're flying a plane as parents. If you're not parents, you're teachers, this also applies to you. So it's like we're on a plane and there is turbulence because there's thunder and there's lightning. And so what are you going to do? You know how it is. If you have been on a plane and there was bad turbulence, I have a question to ask you, and please put your answer in the chat box. When there is bad turbulence in the plane, who do you look at on the plane? Whose reaction do you look at? Can I see some answers in the chat box, please? Exactly. Yes. Thank you very much. Wow, Mike Gomez, are your loved ones. Okay, if they're okay. But most of us, we look at the flight attendants. We look at the crew members and we're trying to see how are they handling this. If they panic, then it's time to panic. If they're calm, then that means things are okay. In brain-based learning, we call this contagion of emotion. What you see the other one exhibiting, the emotion you see the other one exhibiting, you tend to also, you take it on. For example, this is the funny thing. My office in Assumption is by the gate of the preschool where the preschool children enter. And we have had instances where a child enters and then the child is crying. We keep that child away from the classroom. Why? The minute you put that child in the classroom, that one child crying will become 2 and 5 and 8. And before you know it, they're all crying because of the contagion of emotion. Because they look at one child and you catch it. I don't know, some of you maybe, if you're talking to somebody like who has a problem or who's going through something, and then the person is crying, do you ever find yourselves tearing up as well? Contagion of emotion, plus maybe the strong empathy. Therefore, in this VUCA world in which we live, in these trying times, you are the captain of the plane. You are the pilot. And what happens to our children will be largely dependent on how we handle this whole thing that's happening, how we handle what is going on in the VUCA world. Okay, so that's context. Now, we will go to the next part, which is how can I help my child to thrive in these times? First, I'm going to ask you to please put brief answers to the next question. Next slide, please. Brief answers to the question that you see on the screen. What problems or challenges are your kids facing today? We'll wait for some responses. Isolation, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, boredom, especially those on summer break, no? No playmates, entitlement. Oh, school is boring. Oh my. No interaction, lack of physical movement. Thank you. So much screen time. Including online learning. Behavior during online class. Oh my goodness. You are so on point. This is exactly. Thank you for your responses. The 11 who responded, we really appreciate that. Prioritization. Exactly. So given that these are the problems of our children right now in these times, and actually we're not seeing an end to it. Like in our school, it has already been announced that we will be online for this coming school year. My son who's in college in Ateneo, it's also been announced they will be online. So we're actually not seeing an end to this. There's no near end to this. Therefore, how can we deal with this? How can we help our children thrive? Can I go? Yes. Okay. We will go through three things. One, for this part on helping my child to thrive, no? We will talk about how to help our children build resilience. I think given the VUCA world in which we live, resilience is a very important trait that we have to develop, actually not only in our children, but in ourselves as well. Then after that, we will take up two more things, some tips for online learning and some other practical tips. So everybody good to go? Before we talk about resilience, can you just put your hand up like this and shake, shake, shake? Just shake, shake, shake. We just make sure that we're all still awake. Please, if you have coffee or water beside you, up, up, put it up, hands up, please. Thank you. And down, down. Thank you. To the side. Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about resilience. You know, I super duper love the definition of resilience, this particular definition. Before, they used to say that resilience just means bouncing back up like a ball, no? But I found an even better definition. Resilience is not just bouncing, it's bouncing forward and not just back up. Right? So in other words, there's a certain direction, there's a certain movement. You're not just like a ball going up and down like this, but you are moving forward. I think to be able to understand really what resilience is, I believe that children are the best definers of terms. And so we'd like you to watch this very short video, very cute video, and look at how these children, how this child will define resilience. Let's watch this. When the toy falls down, it can get back up very, very fast. Resilience. You know what the good news is? Resilience can be learned. Research has shown, what if I was not born resilient? What if my child is not resilient? That's the fantastic news. It can be learned. What we would like to briefly discuss with you now are five traits of a person who is resilient. And we would like to use an acronym so that it will be easy to remember. Favor. Favor is the acronym, and we will go through each trait, no? Although there are two letters that I sort of turned around, but you will see in a while. The first trait, and as I talk about it, please think of your student, your child, your grandchild. Does this child have these traits? The first trait is, I don't know if you can guess. What do you think the P stands for? A person who is resilient is what? Patient. Good try. Good try. The second letter is an O. Try again. What do you think? Persevere. Not quite. An O. P-O. There you go. Thank you. Positivity. The first trait of a child, of a person who is resilient, is the person is positive. Please take a look at the picture and try to figure out who is being positive here. Is it the monkey for thinking he can carry the elephant? Or for the is it the elephant believing that the monkey can carry him? Either way, both of them are positive. Isn't that so great, no? So positivity, may I illustrate, if you will allow me, because this is a parenting talk, if it's all right, I will refer to my children every once in a while and my own experiences with them. My eldest child, Mara, I think is the most positive person in the world. 7 years ago, she was diagnosed with cancer. Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 2. It was cancer of the lymph nodes. And I remember having been very broken at that time and not believing that it was possible that my child would die before me. That's not the natural order of things. So I remember when we got home, I was downstairs in the kitchen and she had gone up. Then after a while, she came down and she said, "Mom, are you okay?" I said, "Why are you asking me that? You're the one who has cancer. I'm not okay. Why are you okay?" I was like, "How can this happen?" Then she said, "No, Mom, we're going to get over this." She was so positive. So what happened? We went on a journey. Rina, Michelle, the whole Assumption community actually journeyed with my family here, no? And it was such a beautiful journey. And the day after she got her first chemotherapy, her hair started to fall off. And it was quite traumatic to see your hair every time you'd get up, from the pillow, you'd see your hair there, you take a shower and your hair just falls off. So what we did was we called a barber to have her hair shaved. And it was so cute because the day before that, the night before, the sisters and the brother made posters. No hair, don't care. Just like Fantine in Les Mis, things like this. So it was a very positive thing. August 14 was when we had her hair shaved. And it is just so nice. The other day, she just said to me, we went through 5 rounds of chemo. Each time we were 5 or 6 days in the hospital. And then we went through 1 month of radiation therapy. After 6 months, she was declared cancer-free. We still get tested. I say we because I feel like I'm part of it. No, we still get tested twice a year, just to make sure for cancer markers, just to make sure that it hasn't come back yet. But it was just such a beautiful journey because every time she would be hospitalized, she would bake cookies, cupcakes, brownies, whatever it was, and every time the nurses, doctors, the people cleaning, housekeeping, whatever would enter, everybody would get a treat. And the siblings would decorate the room. So the doctors, they like going to the room because they said it's always like a fiesta in this room. And then my children, they said, "Mom, we want to sleep in the hospital with Ate." So we had sleeping bags. We had to get a slightly bigger room so that we could all fit. We had sleeping bags. It was always a picnic. And they were always excited because this was in St. Luke's Global. So they were excited for, is it SNR pizza or is it barbecue? What's the dinner for tonight? That kind of thing. So it became a family journey. It became a family celebration. And I would just like to share, and I'm very, very happy about this. Not so much proud as happy. Her dream ever since before, no, she's in education, was to go to Harvard. And this year, she got accepted. So it was so nice the other day when she told me, Mom, do you remember it was August 14 when my hair was shaved? 7 years later, August 14, the two of us are leaving. I'm taking her to Boston. I'm taking her so that for when she goes to school. And 7 years later, I would never have thought I'd be going to Harvard. It was such a beautiful, beautiful journey. And all throughout, she was just positive, which I think also made it easy for the rest of us. So, positivity. When you have problems, what do you tend to see? You know what they say? Two men looked out of prison bars. One saw mud, the other saw stars. When you have problems, do you tend to focus on the mud or do you keep your gaze on the stars? It's a choice. It's a choice to be positive. Okay? So the first trait is positivity. The second trait is accountability. The A stands for accountability. Todd Herman, who's a marketing consultant, defined personal accountability as being willing to answer for the outcomes resulting from your choices, behaviors, and actions. We're all familiar with Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you do something, like, all our children, I'll talk about this in a while, they all make mistakes. And that's fine. So do we. But the point is, when you make a mistake, be sure that you will take the consequences of your action. To drink or not to drink, you have an exam the next day. You choose to drink with your friends. Go ahead. That's your choice. But you take the consequences of that choice. I admire our students who, when they make a mistake, come up to Rina and myself and will say, like, for example, they're supposed to submit something and then they are unable to. And there's a deadline and they all know the deadline. And they come up to us and they will say, Miss, I'm very sorry I was not able to submit. I have no excuses. I just did not do it. I'm willing to take the consequences. I know I should get a 0. And we don't say, you're so honest. No, we won't give you a 0. No, we really make them take the consequences. So we will say, yes, the consequence is a 0, but know that we appreciate very much you're coming up to us and owning up to your mistake and apologizing for it. It's important that when they are accountable, it's not only to recognize what I did wrong, but it's to be able to apologize and to fix it. And this is very related to the next trait of resilient people, which is people who are resilient are not only positive, are not only accountable, but they tend to value their mistakes. I'll give you a moment to take that down. The sad thing for me, when I was in administration in Assumption, and then we would have cases of even children as early as grade 2 or grade 3 who change the scores in their diary so that when they show it to their parents, it will reflect a perfect score. No fail. Every single one of the kids, every time they were asked, why did you do that? Because my mommy will get mad if I don't get perfect. I think that's one of the worst things we can do to our children. To expect perfection, and when they make mistakes, we scold them or whatever. They will make mistakes. I like what Michelle Obama said. She once said, when she was asked, how do you feel about your daughters going off to college? And she said, in a sense, I'm really happy. And she was asked why. Because now they can make mistakes and I don't have to see them. I don't have to see them making the mistakes. They will make mistakes. I guess what's important is we see them as opportunities to learn. When our children fail, what do? We give them the courage to face the failure and to stand up. The one thing that we should not do is to shield them or fight their battles. The worst parents I've encountered in my over 3 decades as a teacher are those who will blame everybody else and not make the child accountable. What they will come and say, okay, my child only got an 8/10. It's the fault of the teacher. She did not teach the lesson well. This is a test that was not well made. And there are all sorts of excuses. How about look at the child and say, okay, you made 2 mistakes. That's fine. Let's look at the mistakes and try to understand why those mistakes were made. And let's learn from them. The best thing, Rini, is if we can help our children to look at mistakes as opportunities to learn. Value mistakes. I'm not saying you should encourage them and tell them, okay, it's good to get 0. That's fine. No. That's not the point, no? But it's really that when they make mistakes, it's okay. What can we learn from this? I think it's not easy also to have as a parent, a teacher as a parent, because every time my kids go through something, the question I always ask in the end is, so what did you learn from this? So many times when I talk to them, when I need to process them, they will already prepare that because they know mom's going to ask, what did I learn from this? So they already know, okay, so this is what you learned from this. The fourth thing, which is something very important, is recovery time. Recovery time. What is that? You will fall. Your children will fall. And if they feel bad about something, allow them to feel bad. Give them the space to feel bad. How cute earlier, not the video. Remember that little girl, she said the definition. When the toy falls down, you get up very, very fast. You don't have to get up very fast. Our children have different, if you have 5 kids, I'm sure they have different rates of recovery or whatever. And we respect that. But it's important to give them recovery time. You're feeling bad now, that's okay. Just don't make it last a year. You have to get up at a certain point. Okay? So recovery time. And the last thing is, I think for me, the most important. And we as parents should have this trait as well. I'd like you to guess. It starts with a letter E and ends with a letter Y. Chat box, please. It starts with an E, it ends with a Y. There we go. Yes, Cynthia, empathy. It is empathy. This is something especially in the world where we live in now, where everything is work from home, online learning and all. This is something that we really need to work on and help our children to develop. I like one definition of empathy really is to take on the perspective of the other. To put ourselves in the shoes of the other. 2 days ago, our family went through a certain issue. And I was very struck when my eldest daughter, when she said, so I said, so how do you feel about this? And she said, well, I'm trying to see it from her perspective. I'm trying to put myself in her shoes. And so this is how I feel. I think this is something that, when our children do something, how about we stop first and think, where is she coming from? Is she doing this just to annoy me? The worst time in the life of a parent is when your child becomes a teenager. Oh my gosh. When they were younger, we could do no wrong. When they become teenagers, everything that we do is wrong. Right? And it's awful because they're going through the identity crisis and we're going through our midlife crisis, and it's like a volcano. It's like Taal just wanting to erupt. But it really helps a lot if we try to see things from their perspective. And how can we do that? By caring, genuinely caring about what they have to say. Next slide, please. We need to care about what our children have to say. For me, the best time of the day is the evening. Why? Because the whole day, I'm teaching, I'm with my kids, I'm with people. So at night, I'm just in bed watching my K-drama and eating my junk food. And that's best time of the day for me. And then all of a sudden, a child will come and say, Mom, guess what? And, I'm tempted to just, what? With still my iPad there in front of me, but that would not be right? So it really takes a lot of effort to close that iPad and say, what? And then to really get into their world and what they're saying, to fully engage in what my child has to say. How many of you, parents, Do you know the friends of your children? Do you know what they're worried about? Do you know what excites them? We don't have to know everything. You know what I tell my kids? Please don't tell me everything. Tell me only what you feel you want me to know. If you have secrets, that's fine. As long as it's not life-threatening and you're not hurting people, then that's okay. But we need to give them that space, no? So when they do talk to us, we have to be able to really listen. I don't know. I think some of you are parents of young children. Some of you are parents of older children. Last week, we were in Palawan, our whole clan, no? We went off somewhere. And I remember one day we went snorkeling. And then I got super duper dizzy because the waves were bad. So 2 days later, the kids said, Mom, you want to go snorkeling again? And I said, no, not after what happened last time. But each of them came to me one by one. Mom, you want to come? Mom, you want to come? So they were surprised when they were leaving. They saw me in my swimsuit with my goggles and all. And they said, oh, we thought you weren't going. And then I said, my sister-in-law said, so what made you decide to come? I said, I don't know how much longer these kids will be with me. So anytime they ask me to do anything with them, the answer is always yes. What about, I thought you were dizzy. Yeah, I took Bonamin. Bahala na mahilo kung mahilo, but what's more important is that my children know that I'm there. Physically, emotionally, in every sense of the word. I'm not saying I'm a perfect parent. I'm so not. Oh my gosh, I make so many mistakes, which leads me to the next slide. Careless words. We have to be careful about how we talk to our children. There are some parents, that's really stupid because you're stupid. Who would do such a thing? That's so dumb. And then we berate our children. Parents, we don't know it, but that really sinks in. And the impact on the child is, let me illustrate this with a short story. There was a 7-year-old boy who had a very bad temper. And he was always getting angry. And so the teachers were always calling for the parents. So the mother was very wise. So what did the mother say? Called the little boy and said, come here. Here is a box of nails. Pako. No? Here is a box of nails. I'd like you to count in one day how many times you get angry. At the end of the day, we will go out to the garden and you will hammer those nails. If you got mad 10 times, then you hammer 10 nails into the fence. If you got mad 50 times, then you will hammer 50 nails. And the little boy got mad and he said, why do I have to do that? And the mother said, just do it. So the next day, the boy went to school. When he got home, the mother asked, so how many times did you get angry today? 23. All right, go to the fence and hammer 23 nails. And so the boy did. And because he found that it's such a tedious task, he controlled his temper. And so every day that he came home, it was less and less. And one day it was 5 times. And the mother said, okay, good job. Tell me when it's 0. So one day the boy came home and he said, Mom, I did not get mad today. Good. If that goes on for a week, then we will do something. So the boy tried really, really hard. After a week, he said to the mom, Mom, it's been 1 week. I didn't get mad for the whole week. And the mother said, good job. Now come with me. They went to the garden. The mother gave the hammer, turned it the other side like this, and said to the son, now take out all the nails. And he said, what? That's going to take so much time. Do it. He took all the nails out. The end of that, the mom said, what do you notice about the fence? And the boy said, there are holes. And that's what happens every time you get angry. You put a hole in someone's heart. For you, it doesn't mean anything anymore because you've removed the nail. But for the person whom you've hurt, it stays there. So next time, be careful what you say. My mom gave me very good advice. Once my eldest daughter was 2 years old and I got very angry. We were out in the mall and I spanked her and I was so mad. She was so scared that she peed in her pants. And my mom got very, very angry with me. And she said, from now on, if there is one thing that you will remember, it is this. You never, never talk to your child when you are angry. Wait until you are coming from love. If and when you are ready to come from love, that's the only time that you talk to your child. I think my children were saved from a lot of heartache because of that piece of advice of my mom. Finally, the last thing I think I'd like to say is our children will go through trials. Our children will go through difficulties. We don't, especially daddies, no? Daddies always like to fix things. They don't like to see their children suffer. But daddies and even mommies, remember this. Sometimes all our child needs is for someone to sit in the dark with her. And as parents, we resist the urge to turn on the light switch. Sit in the dark. If our child is crying, we just hold them. The other day, my daughter was going through something, and I went to her room and I said, "Do you want to be alone or do you want mommy to stay here?" And she said, "Stay here." "Do you want mommy to talk or be quiet?" "Be quiet." "Okay." So I sat there and I was just quiet. Then after a while, when I saw she was falling asleep, I said, "Are you okay now?" And she said, "Yes." We have to resist to turn on the urge to turn on the light switch. Favor, positivity, accountability, valuing mistakes, empathy, recovery time. We're going to send you into breakout rooms in a bit, but first I'd like to give some protocols for the breakout rooms. First, please share only what you feel comfortable sharing. Chrissy, if we're ready with the breakout rooms, let's put 3 or 4 people in a breakout room, please. Second, listen respectfully while the others are sharing. And last, please be brief. You will only be given 6 minutes. So you only have about a minute or a minute and a half to share. Try to make sure that everybody gets airtime. Everybody gets to share. Okay? And the question that you will answer for your breakout room is this. Looking at the 5 traits of a resilient person, which of the 5 do you feel you need to work on personally? Not your child, but you personally. We will give you 6 minutes in the breakout rooms, and then after that, we will see you back here. Okay? We hope you have good discussion. See you in a bit.
Okay, welcome back. I think, yeah, all of us are back from the breakout rooms. I hope you had productive and rich sharings with one another. But at this point, we'd like to hear about the similarities that you may have noticed, no, in your sharing, and whatever insights you may have incurred during your sharing. Let's hear from about 2 or 3 of you. Can you just do a raise hand, and then we'll call on you to share in plenum.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. You know, one of the things I really like, and this is important for Filipinos to know, because I found that when I attend international things, other nationalities, they're very, very quick to raise their hands and share. And Filipinos tend to be shy. But I think it's a good thing for us to realize that when we share our thoughts, we're adding value to others. We're not here to, grade you on a scale, but we just really want to hear from you. So we would really love to hear maybe what came out in your discussions, what was similar, what your insights and realizations were. So any of you, please take the floor, and we'd love to hear. Yes, Yolanda, I can see. Yes, ma'am. You're still on mute, ma'am?
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Yes, I'll just...
Miss Yoli, you're muted.
Okay, wait. Ask to unmute.
Yeah, maybe Rina, we can stop share first so we can.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah.
Okay, is Ma'am Yolanda still here?
Yes.
Miss Yoli, you're muted. Go to the, there you go.
There you
Okay,
go.
excellent. Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
There were 2 of us only in the breakout room. One was a younger one. I'm 82 years old. And it was very good because we both chose the same thing. Value mistakes. And her perspective was from a young person. My perspective was from an older person. And she said that because she was very high expectations of people, she was a perfectionist. And I told her I was like that a couple of years ago. I attend because I was a teacher in Ateneo for a long time. So my expectations were really very high. and I would blurt out immediately. But as I retired and I grew older with my grandchildren, I have learned from not to put down mistakes, but to learn from their mistakes. And I'm very happy about it now. But it had to do with age also and experience that I had.
Thank you for that. I just want to bring up something because we're all parents here, and they say and I know we're all concerned about mental health, right? They say a lot of the reason of the mental health concerns of this generation is this is a generation that's fixated on perfection. They're a perfectionist generation. Why? Because so much of their lives are on social media. And everything has to be perfect. And when things don't hit the mark, that's when they start to get sad. So really, it's so important for us, if we're going to help them through these times, we have to learn how to help them see mistakes as opportunities to learn, as Mary Ann said earlier. Okay. Thank you. How about others? Maybe we can hear one more insight from one of our participants. What came out in common? Something like an aha for you? Yes, Miss Gina.
Mimi.
Actually, the opposite of perfection is running away, right? So they're on their laptops, but they're running away. They're doing other things. They're playing a game while the parent isn't looking. So I guess valuing mistakes, which is also what happened in our group. There were two couples who were more or less, that was their line of thinking. Mine was a little different. Mine was because I am also a grandma. It's the concept of two-generation gap, meaning to say the fact of being empathic, the E in the paver, so that my empathy is lacking because my old background of having good standards is affected by their lack of accountability, which is why I came here to learn how to be able to handle the kids, to learn how to be more accountable because of the consequences which get in the way, consequences which can either be done correctly or not. And for me, if I try to do it correctly, they rebel. If I try to do it not at all, then I'm letting go. And that's a conflict between the mama person who likes to have her kids grow up well and the lola person who likes to give in to her kids and spoil them. So I guess for what it's worth, that's my sharing for now.
Thank you,
Miss Gina. I think that's very wise input also, no, for many of us. And I think you have very good self-knowledge in saying that that there's this generation gap that you're attempting to bridge. That's why you're here. And you're well aware of what the traits of your grandchildren are and what your strong traits are as a grandparent and as a parent. And there has to be a midpoint or a meeting point, so that things can get resolved and things can be more can enrich both of you, both the grandchild and the grandparent, in this whole online learning setup and dealing with the pandemic. So thank you for your sharing. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're on the second part of our session this morning. And we are going to talk about online learning, which I think many of you are still dealing with at this point, whether as grandparents or as parents. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are certain things that we have to take into consideration in this new reality that we have, especially in the context of helping our kids thrive in the online learning environment. First is the physical environment, and this is referring to our own homes. What is the physical environment for online learning? The reality is that the classroom has been taken away from us. And pre-pandemic, it was so easy to go into the routine of, okay, so you wake up your child or your grandchild, you get him or her ready for school, then the school bus or the driver or you drive that child to school, and then you forget about it for the rest of the day, because they're in school. But our stark reality is that there's no more school, there's no more classroom to as the controlled environment for their learning. And the implication of that is that we must now simulate the classroom in our own homes, whether you are you've enrolled your child for online learning or homeschooling. So the home now is the same as school in terms of physical environment. I want you to take a look at the following picture. And in the chat box, just quickly type in what for you is striking about this online learning setup. Okay, it's busy and colorful. There are available materials. Yes, like a mini classroom. It looks like school, functional, organized, considered what the child might need anytime. Okay, great. So you're seeing that this is a simulated classroom, and it's not even the full room that's shot here. It's just like a corner of a room, maybe. So what does that mean for us who are adjusting our environment so that we can simulate the classroom in our own homes? Next slide, please. Okay, we have to remember that learning, for it to happen, the child has to be away from distractions. And this is not an easy thing to concretize into reality, especially in our own homes when so many other things are happening simultaneously. Okay, so what are we to do as parents? Next slide, please. First is adjust the environment. We have to call that space, whether it's an entire room that you can dedicate to your child's online learning or homeschooling, or just a corner. I live in a 2-bedroom condo, and I have 3 children who have no respect for privacy whatsoever. As in, down to my bathroom times, I have my toddler running after me, knocking, "Mama, are you there? Mama, what are you doing?" But this has to be this fact that I have to adjust the environment for my kids to learn, especially my 8-year-old and my 5-year-old, who are both experiencing schooling this school year. I need to adjust the environment for them. And what does that mean? Like right now, for example, I'm in one room and I've locked myself and I'm using a specific table and chair for online learning or online work. And they know that. So they can make their noise all they want outside with their dad, but I'm here and this is my time to be alone. So in the same manner, when the school year rolls around for my children, we will call that physical environment hall. You take this space, Kuya takes this space, and so on and so forth. So do what you have to do to call that physical environment or that physical space for your child. Next slide, please. Okay, and then accommodate for accessibility. This is also in line with adjusting the learning environment. So as you see in the picture here, if your child is in the preschool years, then you might have to, if you don't have one yet, you might want to buy small furniture that will accommodate the learning of your child, because that will ease the child into the routine of studying, or of learning. And you might want to have, online shopping has been such a trend because of this pandemic, and I'm one of the advocates of online shopping, and I bought myself like a tray where all of my kids' school materials are contained so that they can easily access it whenever they want to paint, they want to draw, or when the school year rolls around, they have all of these materials ready for them to use. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first is physical environment. Now let's talk about building routines. Okay, this is necessary because in the absence of school, physical school, the child needs to follow a certain structure as he or she would have if she were in physical school. So how do we do that as parents? Okay, number one, you can schedule goals on a daily or weekly basis. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is why we need to build a routine. Structure is critical, and we need to give in these VUCA times, as Mary Ann said earlier, we need to be able to give our kids a sense of this word. Starts with an S, ends with a Y. Okay, I'm seeing security. That's correct. There's also another word that has the same number of letters that also starts with an S. There you go, stability. Thank you. Okay, security and stability. Okay, these are the correct answers. So even if the world is very unpredictable and wieldy out there, at least in the home, when we build structure, our kids know that they can rely on this structure or routine, so that every day there's something that's expected of them. Okay? It helps also for them to be able to set their goals, okay, on a weekly, on a daily basis. Okay, so that's one way to build routine. Why not set goals for long term or for the whole school year? Because it's too big. It's too big, and it might not be very realistic to set such long-term goals. So for example, if your child is in the primary years or even in intermediate years and you're present for the activities of the child, you can set the goals with him or her and say, okay, for this day, this is our goal for math. For this day, this is our goal for English, for example. Okay, and if you want to do weekly, maybe that's more appropriate for the higher grade levels.
Michelle, can I just share something?
Yes, go ahead.
One of the things I really took to heart was my son. My son goes to Xavier, and Father Johnny Go said, one of the things you have to think about, it's not so much the grades this year, right? It's really because the world is so VUCA, you just have to make sure the kids are okay. And so what happened? With my son, it was very, very hard for him to get used to online school. What he would do, I don't know if the parents here have the same thing. And remember, I'm a teacher, so we really had to fix his environment. What he was doing, especially during the first quarter, was when it was time for his lessons, he was watching YouTube. Right? I think that's what happened. So one of our first goals, so these are some of the things. One of our first goals is that it's as simple as when it's time for class, you just pay attention to the screen of teacher. Do not go to another app. So there's some goals that are just like that, because really that's what our children are capable of on a daily basis. Another goal later on became every time it's a due date, make sure you're submitting on that due date. Right? So I think it's important for us to realize these are the kinds of goals that we can work on with our children.
Thank you for that, Rina. Yeah, also that called to mind, what I do with what I used to do and still plan to continue doing with my eldest son. Last year, we homeschooled him from a regular school. When the pandemic hit, my husband and I decided we'd avail of a homeschool program. And one of the repercussions of that is that he would not wake up early enough. Like he would wake up like 9:30, 10 a.m. So we were thinking, how do we build a routine at least for that? Like to wake up early enough as if there's physical school. And he used to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So what we did was that to set that as a daily goal first. Okay, you have to wake up at least 7 a.m. And then that's followed by what they know as a morning routine, where we do Lupang Hinirang, we do Panatang Makabayan, then we do our morning prayer, and then they have a physical activity right after before we go into the homeschooling bit. So that these are just some ideas. The next one is rules. Ayan. I saw earlier when Mary Ann asked for the problems that your kids are facing these days. It's the too much screen time, including online learning, which is why rules are definitely necessary. Like we need to set the boundaries, and just because your kids need to participate in online learning doesn't mean we need to remove the boundaries. Anyway, nandiyan naman yan. Tsaka laging sinasabi, especially maybe for the high school and then older ones. But mom, this is part, I'm still doing it 11 p.m., 12 midnight. I'm still doing schoolwork. They need our help to regulate themselves in terms of boundaries. device. And so that's when rules are necessary. So if screen time, for example, is a great concern, then something as simple as when it's dinner time, when it's lunch time, can we ask you to just put away your phone, put away your laptop, and just sit with the family at the table? Let's all have our meals together without the gadget. So something as simple as that can work wonders also. And the kids need it. You know, they're turning into gadget zombies, as they are now called. And that's one of the things that's causing deep isolation. So rules, no, we need to set them, we need to make them clear for our children. Next slide, please. Okay. The third is, so from building routine, let's talk about brain breaks. And this just means that we need to give them breathing space when we assist them with their online learning. When we sit down with our children and check on their work, let's say, whether they're in the primary age, intermediate, high school, we need to let them know that it's okay to take a break and not, with the exception, of course, if they're having synchronous classes. But if we are trying to sit with them and check on their work, for example, you don't just say, okay, sige nga, do all those exercises, and if it's 1 to 100, let's say no break. No. They need the brain breaks to process the information. And there are many ways by which you can give them brain breaks. I wonder, I'm sure some of you already have ideas and have done brain breaks with your children. What do you think are good ways by which you can give your children breathing room in between online studying or online learning? Okay, reading for entertainment or pleasure. Yes, work in the garden. I'm sure a lot of you have become plantitos and plantitas here also, and it's good to cultivate that love for nature also in our children. Read books, pick some snacks. Yes, having snacks for a few minutes, no, would be a good brain break also, and it would get oxygen in their brains. House chores, dual purpose, no, brain break and then be productive in your brain break. Playing board games, going to the park. Great. These are great ideas. No? So let's remember that brain breaks are absolutely necessary, no? As they are healthy for our children. Okay. And last, no, here in helping our children thrive in online learning is for us parents to model love for learning. What does that mean? Maybe in education, we have this catchphrase where we say, teachable moment. Oh, that was a teachable moment. It's not just the basics of doing schoolwork that is learning per se. So, for example, my kids now, they love Power Rangers. And my 5-year-old, he learned to read last year when he was 4, and he said, Mama, what does hyperforce mean? Ang dami niyang tanong about the meaning of words. And then I tell him, okay, force means power. Hyper means fast or big or great. So what do you think hyperforce means? And then he would say, oh, it's a big kind of power. Okay, there you go. So if you cultivate that sense of curiosity, not my 8-year-old is super makulit. Sometimes I tell him, and I'm guilty of this, stop asking me questions na kasi wala na ako isasagot sa'yo. I have no answers for you anymore. So that's when I don't model love for learning. It doesn't mean always entertain your kids, because with the younger ones, they have 10 million questions. But it's to really catch those teachable moments, and also to reframe our language when we're talking to them. So for example, next slide, please. Let's use positive language. Now, in education, we also use that term reframing or framing, where you can be giving feedback, let's say, in the work of your child. And you see that the grade of your child is what? Just satisfactory. It makes a world of a difference if you say, when you say, bakit S lang? Or why is this only average? No? Vis-a-vis, okay, so are you satisfied with this grade? Why or why not? No? So that's reframing using positive language. And also, let's try to avoid talking ill of their teachers, which sometimes maybe when we don't understand what's going on in the online learning environment, no, nasasabi natin, or we say it without being mindful, and our children are there. Like, what does your teacher mean by this? Why are the instructions so vague? No? Because when they hear that, it would conflict them. And I'm supposed to follow teacher, I'm supposed to do as teacher says, but then my mom is saying that my teacher is vague, etc., etc. So again, reframing, would be key here. And then walkthroughs, especially for challenging topics or subjects. I like that Mary Ann mentioned earlier that she would say, when she talked about the treatments of Mara, she used the pronoun we, even if Mara was the only one getting the treatment. And so it's the same here for challenging subjects. When you use the pronoun, the collective pronoun of you as the parent and the child. So what seems to be difficult here? Let's try to work on it together. Let's try to figure this out together. So that would be very life-giving for the child. And, it's modeling love for learning, that she is not alone, or he is not alone in going through this difficult subject. Okay, so there are 4 points given: physical environment, building routine, brain breaks, and model love for learning. Okay, in a while we'll send you out to breakout rooms, and please answer the question. So aside from these 4 points given, what other useful tips would you like to share with other parents, especially in navigating online learning and helping your children navigate online learning?
Hey, welcome back. Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We hope that you got lots of tips from your fellow parents. Actually, I think a lot of us here, because we've had 1 year. We have 1 more year. And I think a good thing is to build community, to learn from each other. What are other people doing that work? Right? That works, so that we can adopt it also. I know stuff like that certainly helps me as well. So we're going to the last part of helping my child thrive. And what I'd like to do now is to share with you some practical tips. And this is something, we're very, very fond of acronyms because they're good for the brain. Acronyms help us remember information. So what is the acronym for the practical tips? We like this acronym anywhere. It is FAM. I don't know if you notice that people call their good friends or their barkada. They don't anymore really use the word barkada. I think that will date you. I think people will think you're my age if I say barkada. If it's your friend, yeah. If you want to, if you want to get into the world, that's also what empathy is. It's getting into the world, into the reality of your children, which is why even if it's not my generation or your generation, we played BTS in the beginning. Do you know who BTS is? If not, it's good. It's a good time for you to get to know this. It's also good for you to get to know FAM. That's what they call their friends, their group of friends. For us, it means something slightly different. It's the summary of the practical tips that you can use in online learning. So there are 3 things I want to discuss. The first one for FAM is to involve the family in learning, because very often the truth is it falls on the mom. So this is actually my appeal to the daddies. Please come in. Let's do, because in a flight, and I'm going to go back to the analogy of actually to make a flight smooth, it's a team that runs it. There's a pilot, there's a co-pilot, there are flight attendants, right? So we really, if we're going to get through this together, we have to work like a team. Everybody has to be involved. Have additional activities, okay? And then make them move. And thank God the IATF has finally allowed this for younger children, 5 and above. I think make them spend some time outside. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through this. So the first thing is, why do we want to involve the family in learning? First, strong support. Michelle said earlier, model love for learning. It can't just be one person who models the love for learning. It has to be, if you have young children, it really helps to see both mom and dad really involved in the learning. Right? So we have to support each other. And sometimes the truth is, and I know my husband will validate this, is sometimes I'm so tired already, I can't take it. And I want to really, and I took to heart what Mary Ann said. Don't talk to your children if you are angry. Wait till you come from love. But they always come to me. So I said, okay, first, can you please go to your father? Or can you talk to one of your siblings so that I can calm down, right? And talk to you from love. Okay. So it's strong support. We have to support each other. And the second, they're a rich resource, right? We're not the only ones who know things. Moms were not the only ones, right? The dads, the siblings know also, right? And they can help each other out. And somehow I feel that really creates also that community feel at home, right? When they feel that they are all contributors. So we really want to involve everybody in learning. And so some simple things that you can do is, I like this. This is so, we have anyway, I don't know, every school now requires that little whiteboard, right? Practically, because it's easy. If you have to do math, if you have to write a quick answer to something, that whiteboard is there. So sometimes what you can do instead of you leading the learning is let your child lead the learning. The very simple thing you can do is have them put their whiteboard and they can just say, okay, today I learned this, right? And that can be what you talk about in the dinner table. So that's one way. Let your child lead the learning. Or today you can say, okay, today you can also have your child write down what I want to learn more about today, right? Or what I found striking in school and I want to talk about more today. That can all be the thing in the whiteboard. The important thing here, what I'm highlighting, is let your child lead the learning. Very often it's we want to do it, but really there's so much that we can gain from our children. Okay, so that's one way to involve the family in learning. Another one is conversation starters. We have to go past how was your day, although that is important. We do want to know how our children are, but you can, and this is where you can do things, where you can teach them to value mistakes. So you can ask them, what's a mistake that you really appreciate that you made today? We've had conversations like this in the dinner table. And this also helps them reframe, a mistake is not that bad, right? So it can be something that they did in school. Okay, I made a mistake here and then I learned this way. Or my children now, they've learned to do the cooking. So they can tell you the mistake I made today was this. And this is how I fixed it, right? So it's really, you can look in the internet now, they have many, many ways of starting a conversation. What was something funny that you learned in school today? What was something surprising that a classmate said? So really, it's good to have, and I know some people, they even have a jar and they have all of these conversation starters that they can pull out, right? So they're having fruitful conversations. It can be about school, it can be about anything. So these are ways to involve the family in learning. So those are just two really simple things I think that we can do. And because we know that you're all busy parents, we just want to arm you with simple, quick, fast, effective things, right? So one is let the child lead the learning, and the second one is the conversation starter. Number two, additional activities. Why? Because sometimes they finish early, right? And when they finish early and they don't know what to do, they're going to go to you. So what can you do? I've seen that we got this from the preschool teachers. They're very good at this. When children finish early, they have like these laminated cards where they have exercises. Why laminated? The girls write their answers in the laminated cards, and then they can erase it later on. So they have that. What is the value of that activity? They can, in that way, you can support learning and build skills, right? So if you want them to read something, if you want them to construct something, you can just have additional activities. It doesn't always have to be for school, although it helps. It can just be for fun or pursuing interests. The most important thing, and I'm going to go back to this. So I'm doing something called priming, because later on I'm going to ask you all a question. And I'm hoping that this will stick with you, is that when you choose activities, it's important to make it developmentally appropriate. Meaning if they're 3 or 4 years old, try to choose something that's for a 3 or 4-year-old person. Like think of it in terms of puzzles, right? You're not going to give the 1,000-piece puzzle to a 3 or 4-year-old. They're not going to like the puzzle. They may never be able to finish it. But if you give them a reasonably sized puzzle, right? They may start getting into it. So one of the important things really that you want to think about when you provide additional activities for your child is something that is developmentally appropriate, meaning it matches where they are. Okay, so what are some things? These are just some. You might be able to think of more for yourselves. For 3 to 4-year-olds, you can already just have ready coloring pages and very simple ones, right? Where they're the shapes or animals. You don't have to get the fancy coloring books. You can just print it out. Thank God for the internet, right? So have those things ready. You can have, if you have old clothes, and you can just make like a pretend costume box, right? And they can dress up. I know kids like to do this also, and they can pretend. So encourage it, especially 3 to 4 years old. And you have your different art materials. You can involve them a little bit, like, these are cooking tools, but there are many like simple toys that you can provide your children at 3 to 4 years old, where they're practicing their motor skills or sort of cultivating their imagination. So that's for 3 to 4. So those are your kids. These are some of the things, again, many ideas on the internet for what your 3 to 4-year-olds can do. 5 to 6, this is also really where they want, like, the curiosity is really growing. So if you look here, somebody said, and because the 3 of us are English teachers, we love the suggestion that somebody made that kids should read, but choose developmentally appropriate books, right? So if you look there, this kid, maybe that's the first chapter book she's holding, right? So nothing too long yet, something simple. And this is also your opportunity to show empathy, that you understand them. You can also ask them, what do you like to read, right? They can also, like Michelle said this also, have them take care of the plants. Maybe they're not doing it perfectly. It's okay, right? But this is a good activity. This is also where you can start building the models, right? Like the volcanoes or whatever, if they like Lego, 5 to 6 is good. And again, I like also what somebody else said, involving them in household chores. You know what the beauty of that is also? Their view of the house changes. They realize they're important contributors. If they learn to do small things around the house, right? They begin to see themselves not just as an inhabitant, but as somebody who can do something for the house. So that's for 5 to 6-year-olds. For the older ones, that's provide a lot of reading material, right? And that's to their interest. In Assumption, we have a relationship with Scholastic. So they're able to order these books. It helps them determine the books that they're interested in. So reading, and then this is where they can really get into their hobbies, like Michelle was talking about, the Power Rangers, etc. My children, when they were younger, like My Little Pony, there was a Pokemon face, right? These are all okay things for them, just because, like Michelle said, they need the brain break. So in that corner of your little learning area, it's good to have the additional activities that are accessible to them. So when you set it up, you can tell them, okay, it's break time now, you can go to that corner. And of course, this is when they can also start to have like interactive activities. You can have them make, all of these things. So that's what you can do in the older grades. Okay, so now that we've gone through this, I'm going to give you a moment to think about the answer to this question. When choosing activities for my child, what things do I need to consider? Can you please put that in the chat box? Because there's so many things on the internet, but what's going to help you decide what to buy on Shopee and Lazada, right? What are you going to choose from the internet? What is the decision point? Can you write down what you need to consider in the chat box? What are, like, if I'm going to choose something, I need to think about, okay, thank you. Len says, what are they interested in? Ria Lope, yes, that's also former student. What's age appropriate? I like also what Mimi's saying, something that's a life skill, right? Yeah, it's also their age and interest. Excellent. Yeah, you can even use online games. And it's good, though, to remember, these are the ones, if you can choose, if you can curate as a parent, right? There's some great online games. There's even an online online workouts, which I'm going to talk about in a while. So far, what we've covered is involve the family in learning and choose appropriate activities. And Rina also says, yes, very important, interest and age. Oh, that's great, Beryl. Self-rewarding activities. Yeah, make them choose, know their interest, right? And if you can, Portia, that's a great idea. one where you can also participate. So you can use it as a time for bonding. Wonderful. These are great, great ideas. And the other thing also that we're thinking about, of course, if you want to also build some more skills that are good for school, you can do that. You can look for those fun things that are helpful. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now another question. You can put, what do you notice about your child after they have gotten to play or move? Okay, so we can hear from you. I'd love to hear. You can unmute and just let us know, what do you notice about your child after they've gotten to play or move? Or maybe you can also answer the opposite. What happens when they don't get to play and move? Okay, thank you. Somebody answering in the chat box. Okay, they have a happy dance. They're less cranky, correct? Super happy after play, right? So you can tell actually, and this is something that we forget. Actually, play is super important for wellness. Children are in that sense, they're designed to play. That's why we talk about brain breaks, right? So another thing that you can do, so movement, play, and nature are great for the brain. That's why I don't know if you saw this at the beginning. What did Mary Ann make us do? She made us shake our hands. You remember that in all different directions. There's a brain-based explanation for that. Why? When you move, you're getting oxygen and glucose to your brain, which you need if you want to learn, right? Have you ever felt like after a class, you're so tired? Because learning takes your physical resources. And if you want to bring it up, you need to move and you need to play. That's why recess is actually so important, whether face-to-face or online. Kailangan may recess sa mga bata. And sana at home, because this is, you can do this, they're moving, right? They're playing. And the other thing, why is nature good? Nature calms. I think we know this. So what are some things you can do with your children? How can we take advantage of this? You can make them move and spend time outside each day. Again, it's good that they're allowed to go outside, but if they cannot, because it's rainy season, this is a very cute website, Go Noodle. What is Go Noodle? Go Noodle is workouts for kids. So if they're just there and then they're not doing anything, you can put on Go Noodle. Some people have also fixed their house, so it's a sort of little playground. But I think what's important for us as parents to understand is that play is good for the brain. And activity, physical activity, actually primes it. It prepares it for learning. Mary Ann, is that right? There was a study before, right? That if it's after PE class, the scores go up. Is that right?
Yeah. We used to, as teachers, we did not like it if we came after a PE class because, we thought that the kids would be tired, a little bit smelly as well. So, but then we discovered when Rina and I trained in the States for brain-based learning that the best time to teach is after they come from a PE class. Why? Because they've gotten the oxygen flowing in their body is the oxygen flow is more efficient. They're more alert. So play really. There's also something I'd like to say, Rina. No? I was just reading recently about unstructured play.
Right.
Unstructured play. They have found that people who suffer from depression did not experience a lot of unstructured play when they were young. I have always been anti sending your kids during the summer or after school. Somebody has to go to ballet, somebody has to go to this class, somebody has to go to that class. Well, thank God it's pandemic and there's not a lot of that going on because sometimes you just need to let them run free and play with cans or whatever it is that they find in the house. So unstructured play and depression. Lack of unstructured play and depression, they have found a link between the two. So allow these kids to just really play. So
I think it's just a matter of, we set up the environment, right? For the kids. That's important for us as parents. So the other thing, what we'd like to ask you now is a way of consolidating this part. And I guess it's also a call to action for us is we're going to put up a poll and we're going to ask you, I'm sorry, somebody started the poll already, no? Not yet. Has it been flashed? Okay. So let's do this now. I'm going to come up with the poll. All right. And we want to ask you, which practical tip do you want to try out it should say week or this coming week? Do you want, okay, involve the fact? So just please answer and we'll wait for your responses.
That's interesting. It's quite even, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wait for a few more. We have 20.
30 responses so far, 31.
Yeah.
Oh, there, something has taken the lead. Hi.
Yes. I think because the adults are also looking for this opportunity. All right,
Yeah.
so we're waiting for a few more to answer. Maybe when we get to about, I think this is a good,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll just show you the results so that you guys can share. And it also just tells us that every family, you know, there's a different thing that matches what's going on in your family environment. So a lot of you said make them move. I think we're really taking advantage now of, you know, the kids can go out, which is great. So you find those al fresco places, if I'm not mistaken, that's what they said. They have to be al fresco. So yes, make them move. But if they can't be outside, they can move at home too. Some of you have said involve the family in learning and have additional activities. So yes, these are the simple, quick things that you can do. And for those doing the additional activities, summer is a good, I don't know if any of you have started. In assumption, we're starting in August. But if if you haven't started school yet, now is a good time to like work out with your kids and to experiment. Ano ba yung mga additional activities na gusto ninyo? Right? And there's some parents who are very smart about this. I think some of them, they also know they rotate the toys, right? What they do is they bring out one set of toys for 1 month, they hide it, right? Then they bring out another set of toys. These are things I've learned from other parents. So certainly, I mean, I think our tip sharing earlier was very helpful. Okay, so we go now to the next part. So that was involve the family in learning, I'm sorry, the 3 tips, fam.
Okay, maybe before we go to the next part, we need to do some shaking. If we were in a live environment, we would probably, can we stand up, please? Just stand up. If you can, if you're able to, just stand. First, your hands in front of you. Can you turn your hips around? Go counterclockwise and just turn maybe 4 times the other way around. Okay, great, great. Just a little bit more. Okay, let's do some cross lateral movements. Right elbow, left knee. Left elbow, right knee. Let's do 8 counts. Ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And before we sit down, shake, shake, shake again. Shake, shake, side to the side, down. All right. Okay, go. You can be seated. Thank you so much. That was very active participation, at least those who were video on, no? So we could see what you were doing. It's really important for us to move. If you look at our roadmap, we have come to the end of we've come to the last part, which is now about you. Self-care for you. Self-care for parents. Look at the next picture and see if you can relate with any of these. Our reality as parents is we're juggling so many things. And really, I empathize with parents who, if you're working for a company that does not really observe boundaries, who think that just because you're working from home, you're accessible all the time, 24/7, that's very hard. That's why it's great to set boundaries. After 5 o'clock, nothing to do with work, because things get very blurred now when this happens. So if this is the reality of the parents today, how do parents normally respond? As parents, because I'm sure all of you here are good parents, the fact that you are here indicates, what kind of parent you are. You are concerned, and that's why you attend things like this. Some of us parents believe that we have to be there for our children during a crisis, even to the extent where we have to sacrifice our own needs for the sake of our children. You will say, but isn't that what parenting is all about? Yes, it is. But if we are not careful, if we focus on making things run smoothly for them all the time, it can lead to burnout. Parents, we don't have to do everything. If we want to raise resilient children, let's delegate. Let's make them do some of the things. Doesn't matter. Even if they're 5, they can do things at home. I think what is more important is that we take care of ourselves first. Why? Because we can only be present to and care for our children if I am present to myself and I care for myself first. It's like a gasoline tank. You cannot run on empty. So you need to fill yourselves up in order for you to, what's that phrase in the Bible that says something like, or is it Marie Eugenie? I'm not sure now. In order to give light, you must be the light. I'm not sure if I'm quoting from our foundress or if I'm quoting from the gospel, but that's very true, don't you think? In order for you to give light, you must first fill yourself with light. So what are the ways by which we can do that? How can we practice self-care? There are 5 things that we will talk about. You can take a look at them, but don't worry, we will take each one of them briefly. Okay, let's take the first one. How do I care for myself?
The first one is do a worry drop. I think one of the things that naturally come with being a parent is that you become a worrier, whether you admit it or not. For me personally, I until recent times, I was in denial that I was a worrier until it started manifesting in my physical body. So it's essential for us parents to do this, to be very conscious that I have worries, and therefore I have to learn how to let them go so that I can better care for the people around. Okay? And here are some ways by which you can do a worry drop, which you can just read for yourselves. It has much to do with, in our circle, like Mary Ann and Rina, we call it pag-pag, no, or shaking it off. No? So there are several ways by which you can shake off your worries. A major strategy to do that is to stay away from the news. No, it's good to keep abreast of what's happening in the world outside our homes, but sometimes it's also damaging, especially for our mental health. When we are trying to keep tabs on ganyan ang kadami ang may sakit, or this is happening, there's war here, etc., etc., and we don't know, it's exacerbating our personal worries in our own lives. It also helps to write down our fears so that we can name them, and then we can realize, oh, okay, yeah, I am worried about these things, and now I can let them. And that's it for number 1, worry drop.
Michelle, would you like me to take this?
Yes, please.
Okay. The second one, I think that's very important, especially now that a lot of us are working from home, is to maintain connections. Research has shown that human beings are wired for connection. And so even our kids, right, we see them when they are disconnected from their peers, they're disconnected from their classmates, it really does something to them. Same thing with us. Find ways to reconnect with family or with friends. Take time to do that. Have Zoom calls or whatever it is. One tradition, I think, that started when we started the lockdown, I think it was March 15, our clan, the Tantocos, no, we started this thing where every day, every weekday, we meet at 6:15, and every weekend we meet at 11:30. Like now, it's going on, and we pray the clan rosary. We pray it as a clan. The 6 brothers and sisters, the grandchildren, my mom, we get together on a Zoom call, and we pray the rosary together. And that's something that all of us look forward to, at least those who are free, no? Because that's a time when we all reconnect and know what's happening in each other's lives. So establish connections, and remember that, because this will also help you to understand that you are not alone. I have a group, it's Michelle and 2 other people. We meet twice a week. Just kwentong buhay. We just update ourselves on what's happening in each other's lives. And somehow it helps to keep us sane. No, when something is going on, it's easy because we know that there are people that we can talk to about whatever is going on in our lives. Okay, so maintain connections. Reconnect. Now it's so easy. We have all the platforms. Okay, so the first one is do a worry drop. Second is to maintain connections. Rina will take the third.
Okay, this is important for us. I know, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, probably we kind of let go because we didn't know what was going on. But the truth is, and we've noticed this, if your health suffers, it manifests in the way that you feel it, right? You feel more lethargic, you feel heavier, and we all have different ways. It's only like, so if you want to be able to take care of your kids, of course you need to be healthy, because actually when you're healthy, you're in a better mood, right? So we want to take care of our bodies. The other thing, and this is a practice and assumption, every morning we start with what we call a moment of mindfulness. What is it? It's just a minute, right? Where what we do is focus on our breathing. And we do that with the students every time we start class. And we find that this makes a world of a difference. So these are ways to take care of your body. And you all may have different ways. You might do a workout that you like. You might be the type like who likes to take the walks, etc. But it is important for you to care for your body so that you can care for your family as well. So care for your body. Another thing is this, and for me, this is important. Carve out me time. Right? Even if, you know why? Because somehow, even when it's a short bout of me time, di ba nagbabago yung mood ninyo? Right? If you get to watch your K-drama, it's like, okay, now I can really sit down and listen to you because I've had time to myself. It is not selfish, because if you really want to be able to be loving to your children, you need to have that time. And you know what? I think children, they also learn that, oh, it's okay to have me time, right? When they see mommy and daddy doing it, taking care of themselves, they realize, oh, it's a good thing. So actually, it's a way of recharging our battery. That's what me time and taking care of your body is. You're recharging your battery. You're really conserving that so that you can care well for the people that you love and care for the most. Okay?
The final one, and I feel the most critical of all, is to have an attitude of gratitude. To always practice being grateful. Take a moment. I think some of you are writing that down. Go ahead. Thank you. It's really, do we look at our siblings or our neighbors and say, oh, she has 5 cars. I only have 3. Woe is me. Yeah, but you have 3, or you have 1, or you have legs. You can walk, you can commute. So if we're always looking at others and comparing ourselves, using them as a standard, as a meter stick, we will never be happy. How about we just look at ourselves and say, hey, I woke up today, I feel great. Thank God. Be grateful for what you have and do not focus on what I do not have. A couple of years ago, so excuse me, I'm just going to get something. My kids, I don't know if you can see this. My kids gave this to me a couple of years ago. It's called the gratitude jar. And then they gave me Post-its, different colors. And they said, Mom, every day, at the end of the day, you write down what you're grateful for and then put it in this jar. Maybe this was 5 years ago. I kept the jar. I haven't gotten back. I haven't gotten to looking at what I was grateful for, but I was faithful to it. And you know what? So the following year, how funny. The following year, because they saw that I enjoyed the activity so much, they gave me a 3-year journal to write. It's a gratitude journal where every page, let's say July 17 of 2018, 2019, 2020. So it was so cute because like I look back at what was I grateful for in 2018 the same day. What was I grateful for in 2019? And I think what it did to me is that it really, during the course of the day, it made me, every time something would happen, oh, I can write this. Now that journal is done because that was still a year ago, no? But we have another practice, Michelle and 2 other friends I was talking about earlier. Every night we have a Viber group where we write down the word grateful, and then under that, all the things that we're grateful for during the day. What has it done for each of us? I think all 4 of us share the same sentiment of it makes us very, very alert to the good things that happen during the day, or even the bad things that we learn something from. An attitude of gratitude. I think this is also, you know how a lot of our kids today have a strong sense of entitlement. You know, I tell my kids, be aware, you're not entitled to anything. You have a roof over your heads, you've gotten an education, you're not entitled to anything. Whatever you get is a gift. The rest you need to work for. But instead, be grateful. Be grateful for what it is that you have. Be grateful for whatever it is that you are given. One thing that we teach our students, and I see a student here, Rina, Sofia Rojas is here. No? One thing that we make our students do is we talk about language. So instead of saying, like parents, I'd like to do that with you now. Think of something that you need to do today. Something that you don't really like to do, but you need to do. Okay. Now, if you say, oh no, I have to clean the car, I have to wash the car, it's so heavy. So we tell our students, how about you change your language? And instead of saying, I have to, what about if you say, I get to? I get to clean the car. I get to do this. Like, for instance, this talk that we're doing with you today, the three of us were very excited about this. And our attitude towards this was, hey, we get to share. We get to share our experiences. We get to share what we learned. So this is something that we were really and truly looking forward to. You will see that once we change our language and we make that shift from, oh my gosh, I have to wash the dishes. How about, hey, like me, I wash the dishes after meals. No, I say, I get to wash the dishes. That's my favorite household chore. Well, I don't know how I'll feel if you make me iron clothes, because that's really not my strength and that's not my skill. No, I'll probably say, I get to, but eventually I have to. But look at what happens when you change your language. Silver linings. Look at silver linings. Earlier, I told you about looking at the mud or the stars. On what will you keep your gaze fixed? All right, I think this ends our presentation for this morning. We were supposed to send you to a breakout room, but in the interest of time, we will do this in the chat box instead. Please write in the chat box, this weekend, I will practice self-care by. Just write one thing that you will do that will show practicing self-care. It can be something we talked about or something that's not there, but that for you is a way of taking care of yourself. Let's give you a minute to write that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Wordy drops. I'm seeing wordy drops here. Yes. Me time. Exercise. Yes. Sleep. Absolutely. Yoga, Zumba, meditation, journaling. Wonderful. I love the responses. Oh my gosh, your families are so lucky. Watching K-drama. Yeah, go, go, go. Sleep and spin bike. Ah, two. That's a very important combination. Yes.
What?
Okay, great. So these are things, I think what is important is just to remember, we cannot care for our children unless we take care of ourselves first. If we want to be able to take care of them, kailangan buo tayo. Okay? Earlier on, I'm sorry, but I don't know if we still have time, Rina, for a question and answer. Is there, sorry, you're on mute.
Did you want to do that first? I mean, we had a couple of there was a good concern brought up, I think, earlier.
Yeah, you want to read her question. She wants her identity to be kept anonymous, but maybe you can just read her question and so that everybody can benefit from that.
Yes, and I think at this point, it's sort of, it really has to do with children and they're not following rules because they have, so they don't obey the rules. They say yes and they don't do it. I've experienced that as well, where my kids will say yes and then they'll get on their iPad and the thing like, have you done this? Oh, I haven't, right? So what do we do, right? The rules and the schedules are hanging on the wall and they are not being followed. So Mary Ann, it has we'd like to share with you a practice that we do with our students.
Maybe before that, we have to be careful also now because sometimes we impose activities on our kids because we think they will enjoy it. But do they? I think what's important, a big thing in education now is voice and choice. Give kids a voice and a choice. Make them choose. What is it that they want to do? Like during playtime, what do you want to do? If you don't want to do anything and wellness is just sleeping, go ahead, then sleep. Whatever works for you, right? But what we do with our students, every time we meet them at the start of the quadmester, is we say, all right, we put them in breakout rooms. We say, for you, what are the 3 most important rules for us to follow in order for us to have productive, fruitful classes? And so they get into breakout rooms and they come up. And then after that, when they get back together, we will pick out the 3 that came out the most. And those are what we call our protocols. So every time they come into class, we flash the protocols and we say, those are not our rules, they are your rules. And I think what's very important also for children is for them to understand, okay, this is as much as possible, this generation, if you notice, young parents, you can't impose. It's not like in my generation, if my mom said, do this, I'll do it. This generation, no, they will question everything and they have to understand everything. So I think to play safe, it is better if we say, okay, we need some rules in this house. Let's sit down and come up with the rules together. Do it together, and not only the rules, also the consequences. So if you don't follow, if you don't do what you said you're supposed to do, what's the consequence? Remember, I talked about that earlier. Accountability. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, I hope the one who sent the question and wanted to remain anonymous can be, I hope this has answered your question. No? We have another question here. Is it okay to push the kids to play outside their virtual environment? What do you think? Absolutely, they have to move.
Yes.
They need to move, get them out of the virtual environment. But of course, observing safety, no? I mean, we have a pandemic going on, so we're very careful also about where we bring our children. Rina, you want to read the next question?
Okay, the next question, sorry, is it, oh, sorry. My son says, I'm so tired when it's time for packing away. Yeah. I think that's a real concern. We used to do this, like there were several ways, and this is what I see, and I'll take from the preschool teachers, right? They'll do it with a song, right? Or what they also do, so and that used to work when my children were younger. The other thing is that I think a caveat or like a limitation is bring out only the toys that you're willing to pack away later, right? Because what happens is kids like to get the whole kit and caboodle. So if they say, I'm going to play, okay, wait, are you, it's good because kids actually need, that's where kids aren't good at yet. They don't have foresight, right? So it helps when you ask them small questions like, okay, will you be able to pack that? Remember, our condition is that you pack away after. All of those things, will you be able to pack it away at the end of playtime? So it might help to do that. Michelle, did you want to add something here?
Yeah, just very quickly, because sometimes really no amount of explanation will get through the head of a toddler or a primary age child. So sometimes, even if, for example, with my children, I try to explain to them somebody can get into an accident if you leave your toys lying around, etc., etc. Especially during the time when we were living with my parents. But it had to take an actual incident where the youngest sister, the youngest sibling, stepped on a toy and slipped and hit her head. No, for them to realize. So every time they make up an excuse for not packing away, I remind them of that incident. It had to take that. Do you want somebody to get into another accident like what happened to Frankie last time? And they would say no. Okay, so even if grudgingly they would do it, they know. But I had to risk, getting a child into an accident for them to really see the consequences of them not following the rule.
Right. Is there another one? Sorry.
I have some questions sent to me as direct messages. One is, Mary Ann, can you describe unstructured play? Unstructured play it's not a board game. It's not it's just doing whatever you want, playing whatever way you want. If you have a piece of rope and you decide to make something out of that or whatever, I'll tell you something that's really cute. I told you that we went on a vacation with my clan a while back, no? The eldest Apo, who was with us, 30 years old, and the youngest was 14 years old. And they had a lot of, at their age, they're very close, the cousins are very close, a lot of unstructured play. At one point, I think for 2 hours, they played agawan base, running all over the island. Although agawan base is medyo structured, but that kind of thing. Or they were doing things on the beach or whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, it has to be a board game. It has to be Cluedo. It has to be like this. No, unstructured. It's just, there's no structure.
Right.
You do whatever you want. You play whatever way you want. I hope that answered the question. There was another private message sent to me from Mike. Are there prescribed limits of screen time for kids?
Yes.
If not, they might be on their devices all day. Absolutely. Absolutely. There has to be. I do not have what I know is the attention span. But the prescribed screen time, that's a very interesting question, Mike. I'm going to research on that as well. But for classes, no, the maximum that a child should be looking at a screen is 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, I downloaded an app. It's called iCare, EYE, iCare. So what this does is it tells me every time it's 20 minutes. So every time it's 20 minutes, we all stop. We ask the kids to look away from the screen. It's the 20-20-20 rule. Try to look 20 feet away for 20 seconds every 20 minutes, just to give your eyes a break. Yeah, it's the 20-20-20 rule. And it's very good. The kids really appreciate it. That screen time, I'm sure there's a limit. I'm not sure what it is. But one thing I'll tell you, for adults, the limit in terms of direct instruction, if you have listened to TED Talks are supposed to be structured so that they are no more than 18 minutes. Why? That is the average attention span of a regular adult. So 18 minutes is long enough that you can present something substantial, but short enough that you don't lose the attention of people. Okay, so at this point, I think it's 11:59. We don't like to go beyond our time. Thank you for your participation, for your questions. We would just like to conclude. I'll go back to our original slide. You are the captain. You are the pilot of your family's plane. At this point, I'd like to share with you a quote from our mother foundress. As parents, what is our role? We have to be the cotton between the sheets of glass to keep our children from shattering. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our children. Our final slide, my daughter shared this with me. She read a book. If you want to pick up this book, it is fantastic. It's called Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And this was one of his last questions in his book was this. And I'd like to share it with you. Can we live in a way where we look forward to looking back? Can we live in a way where we look forward to looking back? If that is our perspective, will we not live every moment well? With that, we end. Thank you. And I think it's good afternoon already. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you po. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Learned so
Thank you
much.
so much. It was very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, thank you for
Dottie.
Hi.
Yay.
Bye.
Right, have a
We're
good
done.
night, everyone.
We need a part 2. We need a part 2.
Can we have a
Yeah.
part two? Part
We
three,
need a
part
part 2.
four?
Part
Oh my
2.
goodness.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
This
Thank you.
podcast has been recorded, so it'll be available on the Santuario de San Antonio website on Facebook, and on YouTube soon. For those who have not registered, please. I think Chrissy will send the here. Please send your email addresses to Mike Gomez.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for today.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.